Welcome in to the newest episode of the Hoth Hangout podcast. Glad to have all of you here with us, joining us for episode 78 of the pod. We're going to be talking all things Bad Batch, episode 14, the second to last episode of not just the final season, but the entire show, if you can believe it. Going to be talking all things Bad Batch and a special viewing of a brand new clip that just came out about an hour ago as the time of this recording related to Tales of the Empire. Stay tuned for both of those. Want to say a quick thank you to all those of you who are subscribed over on YouTube, the 418 of you who are subscribed there. Definitely check out the Hoth Hangout channel over on YouTube for all of the video versions of the podcast, as well as all of our reactions to the latest Star Wars shows, including Bad Batch, which we're currently watching now. Additionally, you can contact us via email at hothhangout@gmail.com with your Star Wars related questions, thoughts, or otherwise, and we'd love to showcase them here on the pod. Additionally, you can find Hoth Hangout wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple. And if you're listening on either or any of those platforms where you are allowed to leave a review, leave a 5-star review on the podcast. We would appreciate it very much. And it does also allow it to be more easily discovered by other folks as well. Additionally, we're findable on all the socials, whether it be TikTok, Instagram, or X. You can find us at Hoth Hangout on each of those platforms. Additionally, we do have the Hoth Hangout community Discord server available. The link to join that will be in the show notes of today's episode. Definitely check it out and head on over there for a lot of awesome Star Wars content, Hoth Hangout related. And of course, we are talking Bad Batch today. So the question we'd like to tease to start off today's episode is: are all of the Bad Batch going to make it off of Mount Tantus in the final episode next week? That's going to be part of our discussion today. But before we get into any of that, Joey, what's going on, man? How are you?
Pretty good. It's been a another quick turnaround day for us. I mean, we were together probably 14 hours ago, watching the show
Yeah.
together, and now we are right back here. But now we got Gibbo with us, so welcome back again, Gibbo. For all these, I'm loving having all three of us in the booth per se, so to speak, and just having fun making this podcast. It's always the best when it's the three of us, but. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this episode. I might be more excited about the clip we're about to watch than maybe actually the episodes that we watched the past 3 weeks. But yeah, I guess we'll find out in a few minutes.
Yeah, I'm pumped to watch it too. Also, as it pertains to the video version of the podcast, shout out to Gibbo who figured out a way to make the scene transitions even smoother than they already were. So, if you're a video podcast watcher, definitely check out the improved transitions in our scenes today, courtesy of none other than producer Gibbo. But yes, like you said, it's great to have all three of us here, and it's great to have this kind of brand new clip that was released an hour ago at the time of this recording. Today on April 24th, when we're recording the episode, the clip is from the brand newly announced show Tales of the Empire. Of course, sort of the sequel as it was to Tales of the Jedi, where we're going to be getting two stories: one about Barriss Offee, the other one about Morgan Elsbeth, assuming 3 episodes per each of those. And the clip that we got looked like it was gonna be more so related to the Morgan Elsbeth side of things, judging upon the thumbnail of the video, if I had to guess. But, essentially, for those that haven't seen it, and I haven't seen it myself yet either, but it looked like General Grievous was part of the thumbnail, which was kind
Right?
of the
Yeah.
exciting component for all of this. What'd you think when you saw that?
Hey, man. General Grievous is one of the cooler and more interesting characters in Star Wars because I know there's a lot more to the story that I just don't know, but I don't know. He's always kind of sat in that area where you're just, yeah, he's a bad guy, but he's a droid and kind of coughing and all this stuff. So, just an interesting character. So I can't wait to see, even if it's just a little bit here, what's going to come of General Grievous here.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, we have what's a 40-second clip, I think. It doesn't look like it's too long of a clip, but
Mhm.
again, if you're an audio podcast listener, you'll hear the audio of the clip. But if you're a video listener or watcher, I should say, obviously you'll be able to react to it with us. So without further ado, here is the brand new clip released about an hour ago from Tales of the Empire. Let's check this out. Oh, he looks so good.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I mean, that yeah, that's Morgan, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we didn't know who that first one was. The first Night Sister. Ooh.
Oh, he's doing the thing.
He's doing a thing. He's doing a thing with thing. Oh, that's it.
Yeah, pretty
So
quick,
cool.
but, gets us excited for that's actually only, less than 2 weeks away until
That's
we get
less
to
than
watch that.
2 weeks away
Can you believe it?
on May 4th. Oh lordy,
Yeah.
I'm
So,
excited for that.
it looked like whoever that other Night Sister was might end up sacrificing herself in that duel with Grievous. That's kind of the vibe I was getting. We got to
Yeah,
see
well,
him
yeah, when
doing
he's doing the
the
thing with the thing,
yeah,
that's pretty difficult to get past.
the spinny lightsabers.
Mhm.
Although it looked I would say it almost looked better. I mean, it's hard to beat how it looks in episode 3, but the way that they did the spinning lightsabers that quickly in animation almost
Mhm.
had this, like when something rotates really fast, you know how when your eye is looking at it, it almost has this, like, curvature component to it?
Right, yeah.
That's what it looked like in the clip almost, like the
Yeah.
lightsabers were being curved, he was spinning them so fast.
Right, yeah, and just yeah, just the quality of this animation looks so good.
Mhm. Did you notice that a lot of the Night Sisters had, like, one of those bows that we see Omega have in Bad Batch?
Ah, that's a good point.
And whoever this other Night Sister is using those, Night Sister magics with with her
Magics.
sword. Magic with a
Yes,
K.
with the green with the yeah, the green, smoke coming out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, I
There's
see the
that
curvature. Yeah, I see what you're
yeah,
saying there. Nice. Oh, I
yeah.
can't wait for this now. Now I can't wait
It
for it. I'm more excited for this for than the, season finale or series finale of Bad Batch right now.
yeah, wow, that's quite the statement. I'm sure we'll talk about that, but yeah, definitely everyone check it out, coming to Disney Plus near you in officially 10 days from now, hard to believe. You and I will very likely be watching all of these and reacting to them, on YouTube, so if you're interested in checking out our reaction to each of these Tales of the Empire episodes. Those will be available in about 10 or 11 days from now. So, lots to look forward to in the world of Star Wars, not just in terms of Bad Batch, but obviously with this new show, or a kind of new show, sequel to the Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire. I'm stoked for this. I would say I'm like equally as excited for the Bad Batch finale as I am for Tales of the Empire, only because I think I'm being probably too optimistic and hopeful with how satisfying the Bad Batch ending is gonna be,
Mhm.
but we might talk more about that later.
That's right.
Before we get into any of our Bad Batch discussion, we do wanna showcase one comment. This was actually from our video where we covered the Star Wars Outlaws story trailer, last week on the YouTube channel, and, the comment was from our very own Kid Caduceus. And this was, in reference to or was this? No, no, this was not from this was not from Outlaw's reaction. This was
Yeah, yeah,
from
that's right.
episode 13 reaction,
Right, yeah.
from last week. I knew I got my reactions mixed up there, but, the comment is in reference to the funny Rampart line in the episode when they're, I don't know what it the one of the Bad Batch says something to him, and he's like, "I was a vice admiral of the Imperial, Army," or whatever, so,
Yeah, didn't
uh
Echo say he was demoted?
oh,
Or
yeah,
something like
yeah.
yeah.
To a captain or something like
To a
that.
captain, because the uniform that they had was the captain's uniform.
Right,
Are
yeah.
you able to read those badges? That you could, like, get that from the badge, right?
You know,
I never learned how to read those.
I'm sure there's people out there who can look at the amount of badges on an Imperial officer's, like, chest and be like, "Oh, okay, that means they're a lieutenant," or that means
Yeah, 2nd
uh,
lieutenant.
yeah, I'm not quite that, astute in my Star Wars, Star Wars military knowledge, but, maybe I need to brush up on it a little bit, but, last week during the, podcast episode, we also asked you all the question, "Will we see any cloned Palpatines in next week's episode?" The responses were both, majority no on X and on the YouTube community tab, with 25% of voters saying yes and 75% saying no on X. and then 36% of voters saying yes on the YouTube community tab, and 64% of voters saying no on the YouTube community tab. So, for the first time in a while, it does look like YouTube and Twitter are actually in agreement here.
That's what we were trying to do. We were trying to eventually get them to agree on something. So I think we
Yeah,
finally got it.
little softball question so that they could agree on something. Well,
Right.
and I mean, it played out the way people voted because we didn't see any cloned Palpatines this week, which I guess serves as kind of a good segue into our discussion of this week's episode, episode 14. And be on the lookout at the end of today's episode for this week's question of the week, where you can respond over on the Hoth Hangout Twitter channel or Twitter page, excuse me, or on the Hoth Hangout community tab on the YouTube channel. So be on the lookout to answering both of those polls after the conclusion of this week's episode. And yeah, as we move into our discussion of episode 14, um, I think the predominant feeling amongst the both of us after we finished our watch through together was kind of a sense of like almost anxiety that we're not gonna get what we want from the rest of this show. Um, I remember like feeling at the end of episode 11, thinking, "All right, we've got 4 episodes left. Uh, like there's got to be some big stuff that starts happening." And then the last 3 weeks, it's been like, yeah, pretty good episode. Yeah, a little bit better of an episode. Maybe not as good of an episode this week,
Right.
but it just feels like nothing crazy is happening. It feels like we're just slowly moving towards the reunification of the Bad Batch and Omega. Um, I guess, I mean, you mentioned you're more excited for Tales of the Empire than the Bad Batch finale. How does your feelings about the Bad Batch finale? How has it progressed over time the past few weeks?
It's regressed. It's I just feel like it's just not I mean, I'm excited to see how this story ends, but week by week, it's just kind of been I had a friend who actually my friend our friend Kid Caduceus actually is a personal friend of mine, actually, and he sent me a message a couple weeks ago. He said, "Should I just stop watching The Bad Batch and just binge the last, like, 3 episodes?" And I told him, I'm like, "That might actually be a good idea." And now going back with that comment, that's probably would have been a good idea because, 1, we don't have to wake up at 2 o'clock every morning, and 2 and 2, and I think I said this during the reaction, the last 3 episodes could have happened in 1 episode, with the amount of action, the amount of storyline that actually happened. If you gave this, like, a 35, maybe, 38-minute episode with all of that stuff in it, you might have been able to pull it off as far as much as the action and all that other stuff. So, um, yeah, I'm still excited for the finale. I mean, this is, an ending of a great series. But going into it, I think even going into these 3 episodes, I was pretty excited still. But as these 3 episodes kind of beat me down week after week, not saying that they were terrible, but they were just like you said, there was nothing crazy, there was nothing amazing that came out of them. And I'm hoping that this last episode, the finale, will be that. We'll have the crazy thing, we'll have the oh my gosh moment, something. But part of me is a little bit more scared than hopeful that we're actually gonna get that.
As far as I'm aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know the answer to this. I don't think they've released the episode runtime for next week, have they?
I mean, I haven't seen it.
I mean, I can look it up right now to see if maybe there is some information on that, but um oh, okay, it looks like it was announced that it's just a normal length episode. Isn't that crazy?
What?
The episode spans 24 to 25 minutes. This feels like a very generic. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. According to this article, this is comingsoon.net.
Mhm.
It says it's a 24 to 25-minute episode. So take that with a grain of salt for what you will. But
Yeah.
if this is just a normal length episode, I think I'm gonna go into it with much lower expectations if we, hop on next week at 2 in the morning and it's 24 minutes, I'm gonna be like, "Well, my expectations are pretty low." Now,
Yeah,
if
right.
we hop on and it's like a 45-minute episode, I'll be like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
yeah.
okay, okay,"
Yeah, same, same, Same.
there's just only so much storytelling you can do. I mean, realistically, it's less than 24 minutes. Like, if you count
Hmm.
out the intro and the last
The
minute or
credits.
so, it's like really it's barely more than like 21, 22 minutes. Um, so all that being said, I can't envision um an ending to this show that is both satisfying and mind-blowing. If I had to guess, I think we're gonna get an ending that is probably pretty satisfying, but I'm pretty skeptical that anything mind-blowing is gonna happen next week. That's kinda just how
That's
I'm
fair.
going into it, which is kind of disappointing because Bad Batch has been a show that all along really surprised us for what it was, because we didn't expect much of it, and it feels like it's kind of grown in its notoriety, so to speak. And now at the end for it to just kind of be like a satisfying ending, but not really
Yeah.
amazing or anything, it's like, "Oh, well, was it what we thought it was all along?" I
Right.
hate to even say it like that,
Right.
but you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
And I wonder if the thing for this series is Omega with the M count, and like that's it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, and there isn't. So the story will continue on, in the minds of all of the viewers, but that's supposed to be it. This is, here's another child, a clone, you know, as well, that has, maybe not force abilities, but has the capability of having force ability. We still don't know exactly what this M count means, but just maybe that is what we're supposed to take away from it. So that's kind of what my thoughts are right now. And I know
Yeah.
we have a little bit later we talk about what we are expecting from the finale. But yeah, maybe that's what we end up with this series.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that Bad Batch isn't used by, like, the Star Wars executives now as a launching point for another project. I kind of liked it as almost its, like, standalone thing, like, a different perspective post Clone Wars, where you really get to see this group of ragtag people.
Hmm.
Now what it feels like they've been working towards the past season at least has been kind of like, how is Omega's story going to impact the greater story of Star Wars?
Right.
Um, and I don't think we're gonna see the end of it in Bad Batch, so, all that to say, yeah, I'm skeptical leading into next week, but I mean, I guess we should talk more so about this week's episode. I feel like we've been harping a
Yeah.
lot on how worried we
Yep.
are about next week, but for what it was worth this week, it was a decent episode, pretty good. I think you and I both liked last week's more. I thought episode 14 was a little bit stronger than episode 12 personally. I don't know if you felt the same way, but it definitely starts off on a bang, kind of with that action sequence. We pick up where we left off on the last episode, and the Bad Batch's ship is attached to the underside of the science vessel headed towards Tantus, hurtling through hyperspace, which was a pretty cool, end to the last episode and a cool way to start off
Yep.
this episode. And um, in order to avoid being detected and scanned by the base, this was kind of the logic behind that. And so, shortly thereafter, Echo also knocked out that stormtrooper trying to access the comm port. And we'll get to the great dad joke. Highlight of the episode was the dad joke that Echo had here about halfway through the episode. We'll get to here in a bit. Um, but of course, as they come out of hyperspace, there's all these ships, and they're met by this fleet of um, Empire ships, and pretty immediately the action kicks off right after that. Hemlock shortly before that ordered to monitor airspace around the science vessel, which was interesting to see him again for the first time. And I mean, I don't think he was in last week's episode, was he?
Mm-mm.
I think I've been a little bit disappointed with the show's depiction of Hemlock, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted more evilness from him. I want my villain to have a really prominent role and,
Yeah.
take that staunchly antagonistic stance for the show. And it felt like it was going that way for the first half of the season, and then it kind of has just, like, trailed off in that. Yeah, Gibbo makes a great point. He has a great villain voice.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
Jimmy, what's his last name? You know who I'm talking about?
Mm-mm.
Uh Oh my goodness. I'll
Yeah.
I'll look up the actor's name.
But yeah, the yeah, he had such promise of just being this like really bad guy. But
Right.
this episode, it just seemed like he was just kind of giving orders. He was reading from a booklet.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, this is what happened, so this is what we're gonna do. We're going to attack them this way. Just scan the jungle, make sure you know the ship is down, and yeah, just kind of the standard operations of somebody in that position.
He was really only in the episode for, like, what, 2 minutes
Yeah,
maybe?
probably. Yeah,
I really thought this show was going more of a, like, him versus Omega sort of direction. Um, I'm sure he'll have a more prominent role in the last episode, but, I don't know, I haven't been impressed with how they've chosen to use his character over the last
right.
2 weeks or so, hopefully that changes a little bit in the last week, but he did have that small role to play at the beginning of this week's episode. And so as they come out of hyperspace, the Bad Batch detaches from the vessel, and as we mentioned, they're immediately met by those Imperial fighters. And there's sort of this dichotomy of stories being told at the same time, both the Bad Batch's perspective and, of course, Omega's perspective with all the other. I keep wanting to say force sensitive, but I'll say high M count
Yes.
kids in the vault, which maybe that would be a good question to pose at some point too. Like, and maybe we'll have more information on this by the end of next week, but like, does high M count equal force sensitive? I feel like this show
Right.
is
Yeah.
leading us to believe that that's not the
Right.
case, but
Right. Right.
maybe we'll have more answers next week. I feel so bad for the kids every time I see them in the vault, Joey.
They're so
They're so cute.
sad.
Yeah, and they're also,
They
yeah, it's very heartbreaking.
they're so sad, and it's just like this huge. I mean, if you look at this picture here, it's this huge, vast space, and they're just like 4, 5, five little children that are just in there, sadly playing games. And even the way the voice actors depict these kids, they're just really. What do you
Yeah.
mean by cover? Just like real
My
small and
my tummy
swirly.
hurts,
My tummy hurts. Yeah. So it's just sad. It's just a sad state for them.
Yeah. I hope they each play a pretty cool role in the next
That's
week's
what I'm
episode.
hoping.
Like, there's a scene where one of them has to, like, slowly use the Force or something.
Hmm.
I think
It's
that'd be
gonna be
pretty neat.
Jax, the green,
Yeah,
the green one,
I like Jax. I like all of them. I feel like what's the young Baron? Is that the youngest one's
the
name?
youngest one. Yeah,
I feel like if there's gonna be a character who uses the Force next week, it's probably gonna be Baron. That's
very,
my
yeah,
guess.
very Jack of Incredibles. Reminds
Yes!
me of
Oh
that.
my
Yeah,
gosh, that's a good comparison. I like that a lot, actually. But yeah, the kids are in the vault and they start to notice these noises of the ships outside, which pretty instantly Omega is like, "Oh, they're here for me. Like that's my brothers. They
that's
came
my
for me."
brothers. I love that
Yeah,
line so much for some reason, but yeah, that was good.
arguably the best line of this episode, other than
The dad joke.
the dad joke that Echo gives. We'll talk about here in a second, but um, were you surprised as their ship was going down, how the Bad Batch got off the ship? When they said they were gonna use those rappel cores to jump off,
Yeah, there's
I was like,
there's
"Is
no way.
Rampart gonna do it too?" You know?
There's no way. There's
Yeah.
no way.
Well,
I did like the maneuver that Hunter pulled on some of the Imperial ships, where they had already shot at the ship that they were on, the vessel that they were on, and he was kind of falling to gravity without any engines almost, and then because of that was able to kind of swing the ship around in order to aim right at some of the Imperials, and
mhm.
then then kicks the engine back and then goes right past them. I that was a good move. I like a good dogfight. So that, and I mentioned in the notes here, kind of reminded me a lot of Force Awakens when
Mm,
Rey did that with the Millennium Falcon while Finn was the gunner in there too. It kind of remind when the gunner got jammed, so it was stuck in the straight position, so she had to like almost flop backwards. So it kind
mm.
of just gave me the same vibes of that.
Nice. That's a cool call out right there. By the way, side note, when it comes to space battles, in Star Wars Battlefront 2, are you a ground battle person or a space battle person?
Oh, space battle.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
it's more fun.
Um,
I'm not
yeah,
I'm not good at it, but it's fun.
there you go. Um, but yeah, shortly after this, uh, Rampart, I'm blanking on his name there for a second. Rampart's cable gets stuck, and he's freaking out, of course, and uh, I believe it's Hunter has the wherewithal to kind of shoot it and then catch him.
Yeah.
And of course, I the second time I watched the episode today, I watched it with my girlfriend, and the first thing she said during this scene was, he just screamed like a little girl.
Nice.
So
I'll have to
that
watch
was
that again. I don't remember hearing that.
yeah. So it was kind of a funny moment there, but of course Hunter does catch him, and they inevitably use those rappel cores to get off the shuttle before it's destroyed, even with the snag of ramparts. But meanwhile, Echo did manage to change into a stormtrooper uniform, more easily access that com port. A clever move on Echo's part, which leads directly into his next scene where he's accidentally caught accessing the com port by that droid who's like, "What are you doing here? This is my area. You're in restricted territory." Of course, he destroys the droid and steals the hand at the same time, and has the best line of the episode. Thanks for the hand, which I thought was
Wonderful.
absolutely fantastic, of course. But jumping backwards a little bit to the Bad Batch, they reunite after the crash in the jungle. Um, and then there's a great conversation that takes place shortly thereafter between Crosshair and Rampart. And I think we mentioned it during our reaction, our watch through. These two have a very similar and unique commonality that not many of the other characters, if any, really share in the show. And it's these characters that were very much of the mind of the Empire. Like
Right.
we're more or less, good soldiers follow orders. I'm a high-ranking Imperial officer.
Vice
What they're
Admiral.
vice admiral. There you go. Yeah, betrayed by the Empire in both
Yeah.
circumstances, and now they're left to kind of fight for their own. Crosshair, of course, being a little bit better off in the case he has the support of his brothers, but nonetheless, they both do that share that commonality of being betrayed by the Empire, and so they have a great conversation that kind of revolves and centers around that. And the exchange goes something like Crosshair says, you fall behind, you get left behind. Rampart says, "You're like me, loyal to no one but yourself." Crosshair says, "I've changed." And there's this kind of ominous moment where Rampart says, "Sure you have," before the
Mhm.
cutscene and the dramatic music take
Do
place.
you do you think that's foreshadowing anything for either of them, for either Rampart or because I mean, obviously, you we would think of that for Rampart because that's him saying it. But
Right.
is he saying anything? Is that foreshadowing anything for Crosshair actually?
I would be open to the thought of it. If it weren't for the fact we have 24 minutes left of this show.
Right, yeah.
And so I'm like, how are you gonna introduce a conflicting element of Crosshair's character when we have 1 episode left?
Right.
Like, I don't think we have any room to explore more flip-flopping conflict within Crosshair, in
Yeah.
the remaining time of the show. If we had another half a season, maybe, but I think it would do kind of a disservice to the character progression of
Mm,
Crosshair if we
sure.
do see him somehow betray someone or flip on someone in the last episode of the show. Now what I think it more likely could be alluding to is that maybe it's setting up some sort of, like, coming clean moment for Rampart in the last episode, like, where he's like, "I'm putting the Empire behind me." So maybe it's like, what would you call that? Like, reverse foreshadowing in a way?
Mhm.
But, yeah, I don't know, it was kind of a weird moment because you called it out as we were watching it, and I was like, "Yeah, that was a little bit of a
A little dark.
dark, odd tone there in the middle of the episode when it really doesn't feel like they're headed in a negative. I guess I shouldn't say negative, in a, imperial direction with Crosshair's character, but I don't know, that's just me. Did you have any other thoughts on that piece of that scene?
I mean, I asked the question because I kind of hope that there may be a little bit more to Crosshair's story, but you're right. In 24 minutes time, probably not.
Right, yeah. But for me, Crosshair was, I think, one of the best parts of the show, especially, like, season
Mhm.
2. I think Crosshair arguably carried season 2, in my opinion. I just loved.
Shocking.
Yeah, yeah. Crosshair local Crosshair fan right here, but yeah, so a great scene in the episode, a really impactful scene at that, and then kind of jumping back to Omega and the rest of the high M count kids over in the vault, she makes the decision that as these loud sounds are going on outside, which she knows are her brothers here to rescue her, that she's going to go and scout through the hole she had made in the last week's episode in what we coined the Alcatraz hole, and ask the others to stall if needed. And so you get a great scene shortly thereafter, where Omega's crawling through the walls, doing all this like James Bond stuff, getting past these like moving blood test kits that are assumingly like funneling stuff back and forth, and um, the testing resumes by Doctor Scalder. I feel like I always forget her name. Is that right?
I think that's right. Yeah.
And, so she resumes the testing with the children, and this is that scene where, they're all trying to stall, like, Eva's like, "My stomach hurts," and Jack
Yeah.
is like, "Oh, can I go next?" Like, he's
Right.
excited to
Yeah.
have his blood
The
drawn
blood
for these
taken for
testing.
the thousandth time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had the feeling, and we talked about this after the episode, I had the feeling that Omega was gonna get caught in that moment and that the kids
Yeah.
were gonna somehow have to, like, revolt against the
Which
doctor.
which would have been great, by the way.
I think it would have made the episode stronger, personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
But of course, Omega gets back just in the nick of time, even though we don't
Yeah.
actually see it
See it
happen
happen.
on camera. But yeah, a suspenseful moment in the episode, nonetheless. Meanwhile, Echo is still looking for Omega, and so he finds that vault in another console, which is around a lot of Imperials. And then there's a scene that happens with Echo towards the very end of the episode, where he successfully gets to that main communication room to find where Omega is caught. And there's a great conversation that takes place with him and Emery. And this is the moment we've been building up to. I think really the
Yeah.
purpose of the last 2 or 3 episodes, especially like what I'm calling, I guess, the vault episodes with the children,
Hmm.
um, where you're seeing the gradual transition of Emery from someone who is this imperial doctor who has to follow orders to someone who has this ultimate like compassion and empathy for these kids who are in a situation which is heartbreaking. And you know
Right.
you see a lot of the, I mean, I don't mean this in an ironic sense because she's a clone, but like you see a lot of the humanity in Emery in this scene. And where we're left off at the end of the episode is kind of the fact that, she's now on board with the Bad Batch more or less. Like she, at least what I gathered from the conversation she had with Tech, is like she's in it to win it with them now. Like she's gonna help
Yeah.
them break Omega and the rest of the kids out. Is that how you read that scene too?
Oh, absolutely. That's probably my favorite scene of
Mhm.
the entire episode is seeing Echo kind of confront her with this, and maybe he's thinking, "Oh, she's not going to help us out, and this is going to be an enemy, even though she's a clone as well." But to find out, not only will she be helping, well, she'll do what she can to help out, but also gave him some information. He had no idea that there were like children that
Right.
were being in prison basically. Now I forget if he understands, if he knows about the M count and all that stuff and the tests. I don't remember where he stands at all that, or if anyone does. But to see this scene, to see Emery finally make that turn, because we've been waiting for it. We've been waiting for it. They've been setting it up for pretty much all season to finally get to this point. Probably the most pivotal scene in the episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely so, and pivotal for the show as a whole as well, going into the last episode of the show. Um, I'm excited to see what Emery's role is in next week's episode. It could be a sacrificial one too. Have you thought about that?
I have, and that's a little bit scary, but also at
Yeah,
the same time, you could see that happen.
yeah, yeah. I wouldn't be shocked if it does, but oh, and then there was also a fun little scene that I sort of glanced over here with the Bad Batch and Rampart, shortly before the scene with Echo and Emery, where they're going through the jungle and Rampart leans up against something that's clearly living and breathing and moving.
Oh,
Uh,
right, yeah, that whole thing.
Yeah, this giant, creature whose name I actually don't know. It's kind of resembling of like a cross between a lion and did you ever read the book Where the Wild Things Are?
I have, yes.
It's like almost one of those monsters from Where the Wild
Yep.
Things Are,
Mhm.
crossed with a lion. Um, Almost looked like a variation of the cat-like creature that Ahsoka in Tales of the Jedi calms by putting her hand
Oh, yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
its,
Wow, I
snout.
haven't thought of that one in a while.
Although this looked like a jungle variation of that same creature
Mhm,
perhaps, but, of course, the creature attacks them, and the Bad Batch are separated from Rampart, who is then shortly thereafter captured. Where do you think they're going with Rampart's storyline in the last episode? 'Cause I honestly can't tell right now.
so here, this is where I'm a little bit torn because I was gonna going into this, I'm thinking Rampart is gonna betray them now, right?
Mhm.
But now he's in a position to actually help them, right?
Right.
Because if he's gonna be with the Empire, they ended up capturing him here. He's actually in a position because so whoever he's with, he could actually help the other team, right? So in
Mhm.
this case, if he's with the Empire, he could actually help the Bad Batch. If he was with the Bad Batch, he could, betray them. So the way this ended out with him being captured, I think now he will be helping them.
Okay, yeah, I'm kind of the same mind. I think there's something in him that's going to make him want to help them. I feel like it might be something that Hemlock says to him next episode that rubs him the
Mhm.
wrong way.
Kinda tips him off. He's like, "You know what?
Yeah,
Crosshair was right."
yeah, yeah. I hope so. I want there to be a good ending for Rampart as much of a perhaps an unlikable character as he was 2 seasons ago. I feel like it could say something about his character and someone who goes from bad to not really good, but in the end makes the right decision. And that feels
Mhm.
like it could be a sacrificial decision too. I
Mhm.
would be shocked if we end next week's episode, the last episode of the show, and Rampart and Emery are both completely fine.
Yeah.
And, I just feel like one of those two especially are gonna make, some sort of sacrifice, or maybe even one of the members of the Bad Batch. That we'll have to maybe talk about that a little bit at the end of our discussion today. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much the gist of the episode, with the exception of one of the very last scenes we see is Omega saying to the rest of the kids in the vault, "I found something big. I have a plan, and I'm gonna need your help." Now, I honestly didn't this didn't register with me while I was watching it with you, Joey, like, what
Correct.
she was saying. I just kind of, like, felt like it was a generic outro to the episode, and then I thought about it, I was like, "What did she find? Like, what is this big
Mhm.
thing that she's referring to, and how's this plan gonna be pulled off next week?" I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Did you have any hunches in regards to, what it might be? I know that yeah, Gibbo makes a good point. There was the scene with the Zillow Beast
That's right,
that we
yeah.
saw, and so, maybe that's what she's alluding to when she says, "I found something big,"
Mhm.
because
Like,
we know those
literally.
literally big, but I don't exactly know how like, what's her plan if it is with the Zillow Beast? Like,
Yeah, right.
gonna break that out too and write it away? What's that gonna look
Right.
like?
Yeah, and I think that's I think Gibbo is exactly right. I mean, I think that's the big thing that she had found. I don't know what the plan is. And of the two things that she said, I found something big. Well, I have something big. I'm gonna need your help. The I'm gonna need your help is actually more intriguing to me
Mm,
because we know high M count kids. We know this. So if anything is going to be exciting next week, it's going to be how these kids are able to work together.
mm.
Little Goonies action here. This is what
I
we're
was
gonna
thinking of the
happen.
Goonies too.
I think that this is where it all comes together. These kids who seem very timid and very scared somehow will come together to get this job done. So I'm hoping that is what this might be a good segue into our question of what we're gonna do later or for the next episode. But I think that that's the more intriguing part to me.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's a great point. I think there may even be a scene where it's like none of them are quite strong enough to use the force together, but they all, if they, really concentrate, they somehow use the force on something
Right.
that's
Yeah.
impactful. So yeah, like that working together element, I could totally see that. But we're headed towards what appears to be
Yeah.
hopefully a impactful and exciting episode in the last episode of the show. I honestly, if you ask me who's gonna end up off of Tantus, I don't know. I mean, I could
Yeah.
see them taking a couple different directions, not exactly sure, but, I guess to conclude our discussion on episode 14, maybe we can each rank and grade the episode, and then we'll talk about some of our expectations for the finale of the show before we end today's episode. But um, did your ranking change or stay the same from your immediate reaction to
Actually,
the
it
episode?
changed. It
Okay.
changed and it went up. A little
Okay.
shocking to me, actually. And so this would be the same grade as I gave it last week, which was an 8. After the rewatch, kind of like what you said, like there were some things, you and I think when I'm watching it for the first time, I'm very cognizant and I'm aware of timing.
Hmm.
And so when I see it's only a 20 something minute show, I'm constantly thinking like where are we now? Is there enough to develop any more of this story? So maybe I'm spoiling a little bit for myself. But now going back and watching it, those two things like I said that were very pivotal, the Emery scene and then just kind of that last line from Omega kind of really brought it home for me. So um and so at the end of it, enjoyable. I think it was a good one in comparison to what we were expecting for the last quarter of this series, maybe not exactly,
Hmm.
but hopefully it's all leading up to this last episode and this finale.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm having 8 out of 10 for this one as well. I desperately want to give an episode of this show like a 9 or higher. I just
Right.
feel like there hasn't been
Mhm.
for what it's worth. I think when we were watching the first season of this show together, I think there were so many episodes where we watched it and we were like, "Well, that why were they doing that for Sid the whole time? Like, why did that
Mhm.
matter?" And I think you could look at season 1 of this show, and there's easily 2 or 3 episodes where you're like, "That was a 6 out of 10."
Mhm.
I don't think we've had hardly any, if not just straight up none of those episodes where they're like 6 out of 10s, in season 3. But I would say we've only really had, like, maybe 1 or 2 at most that are, like, 9 out of 10s or higher. And this falls in that same boat of like, good episode. Love the dialogue scene between Crosshair and Rampart.
Mhm.
Um, kind of love the continuing journey of the coming of age of Omega and the wisdom and sort of enlisting these other, uh, you know, what Gibbo coined as the Bad Batch Junior recruits, to
I like
join
that.
her in this escape from Mount Tantus. But like you said, and like we've been saying all episode long, nothing incredibly amazing happened in this episode, and it still feels like we're building towards the reunification of the Bad Batch and Omega. Of course, the other main thing I did want to mention is that I'm excited to see now that Emery is what it seems like an official non-imperial. It seems like she's officially put that behind her and betrayed the empire. So, um, kind of just a lot of moving pieces that were really well done. Nothing extremely exciting, but puts us in a what I think is a pretty good position for an awesome last episode.
Mhm.
Um, hopefully satisfying. I don't think it's going to be groundbreaking. I think
Right,
they're
yeah.
going to probably try to use the Zilla Beast as the amazing thing, whatever that is.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's going to fly for a lot of people in terms of just
Right,
this
yeah.
spectacular moment of the end of the finale, but, we'll see. I'm willing to give it a shot, and like we said during our reaction, hopefully the finale is a 15 out of 10, but, that remains to be seen, so, just quickly before we end today, we wanna talk about some of our thoughts for what might happen, or maybe even more apt, what questions we have that are looming, when we think about the final episode of The Bad Batch. There's a great point here in our notes that you've made that says, "We need to know where's Rex, where's Cody, where's Wolf, where's the operative, what's Batcha up to, what's going on Pabu?" Like, I don't think there's any way we check in with all of those people. I don't think we're gonna see Pabu next week. I mean, I hope
Yeah,
we
right.
do, but if we do, it's gonna be like 60 seconds at the end,
Right.
probably.
Yeah, for the
Um
record, that's Gibbo that wrote all that.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, these are great points. I mean,
Yes.
and then another thing which I've completely resigned, having hope for any of these things, is seeing Cad Bane,
Yeah,
seeing
Saj.
Fennec Shand, Asajj Ventress. Like, I'm pretty resigned to the fact that we're not going to get these characters in the
Right,
rest of
yeah.
the show, which is disappointing because it felt like in the promotional stuff for season 3, it was like, "Man, these are
Yeah,
gonna be integral characters here."
I kinda feel it kinda feels sleazy now that they did that, where They needed to get that really felt like a money grab, a version of a money grab where, "Hey, look, here's this character that you loved for so many years in Clone Wars. Look, she's back in the Bad Batch. Whoa." You know? So, of course, it's gonna bring, at least a number of people to at least turn on your Disney Plus to see, who weren't watching Bad Batch, or who maybe fell off of Bad Batch,
Yeah.
and we're like, "Oh, look, here's Asajj," and then to only be there for what was it really? Just the 1 episode?
Yeah, just the
You know,
one.
just
Yeah.
to have that. I mean, that was a major thing in the trailer. That was, like, the moment, you know? So for that to be that, and for that to be just, like, a middle of the season type of episode, and that's it, I mean, that's gonna be that's because that's what it looks like, the optics of that, for me, that's what it looks like, where it just, "We need to bring in more people to watch this show. Let's just bring in Asajj Ventress." Sure.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, it's disappointing, but I think ultimately it also opens the door to including her in, future Star Wars,
Yeah,
content and films and TV shows, hopefully, so we'll see. She's officially alive now. We got something really positive out of Bad Batch in that
but
regard, but
it seems like Tech is not alive from what
yeah,
it seems like. I
yeah.
think we can close that chapter.
We spent the first half of season 3 being like, "All right, they're, like, alluding to it. Oh, here's an operative. Like, is that gonna be Tech? Like,
Yeah.
is Tech still alive?" Like, we wanted it to happen so bad, and it just feels like that's not the case. They could shock us. Hey, I'll tell you this, if Tech shows up next week, I'll take it all back that I've felt like there's been a lot of, like, decent episodes, but nothing amazing. Like,
Yeah.
that would be the shock factor in the final
Right, right.
episode that I would really look for, but I don't think it's gonna happen personally, but
Not in 24 minutes.
yeah, not in 24 minutes, but I guess that also gives us an opportunity to pose the question to everyone listening. What are you most looking forward to in the last season of the Bad Batch, or in the last episode of the Bad Batch? And then additionally, in that same light, are all of the Bad Batch going to make it off of Mount Tantus at the conclusion of the season finale, the show
Oh
finale,
boy.
at that matter? I don't know. I lean towards yes.
Yes.
I think the
Let's say
biggest candidate is probably Crosshair to
I
not
was
make
gonna
it.
say, yeah. Who yeah, if you had to choose one of the Bad Batch, who would it be? It would be
It
Crosshair for you?
I mean, I wouldn't want Crosshair to not make it off.
I know, but yeah, as
But yeah,
for the discussion.
yeah, I think story-wise, it makes the most
Mhm.
sense if he's the one who makes that sacrifice and doesn't make it off of Tantus. And actually, that's a pretty realistic direction I think the last episode
Mhm.
could go. So yeah, I would throw out Crosshair, Emery, and Rampart.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a maybe 20% chance that all 3 of those characters are making it off Tantus at the end of next week's episode.
Mm.
So, we'll see.
My bet would be Hunter.
Oh, okay.
I don't think Hunter, because the dad, right? He's kind of the dad of the
Yeah.
group, the dad of Omega there. I think that would be more impactful. Didn't your heart sink just a little bit when I said that, right?
Yeah, I can see, like, that really having an impact on Omega.
Right, yeah. And then but, kind of full, that's what, a parent would do for their child, whatever they need to do to sacrifice. I feel like that would be the most impactful one. If anyone had to, if the I think all of them would sacrifice themselves for sure. I don't think Hunter would let anyone else do it but him.
Hmm. Yeah, I could see it too. I'm hoping none of them.
Me too.
Yeah, but, I mean, none of them. I'm not saying that I want all of them to not make it off. I'm saying I want all of
Right,
them to make it off,
yeah.
just to be
Just
very clear.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We're gonna throw a Rogue One at him.
Yeah, oh
Everyone,
gosh.
just no one makes it.
So how was, the movie? How was Rogue One? They all spoiler alert, they all died.
Yeah.
But anyways, so next week will be our final episode of the Hoth Hangout podcast talking about The Bad Batch. Kind of a little bit bittersweet in that regard, but of course, on next week's episode, we will be covering the Bad Batch series finale and recapping it and breaking it down. In addition to that, we'll also be releasing our reaction to the finale the day before that, next week, early Wednesday morning. So be on the lookout for that as well. Want to once again quickly say thank you to all those of you who are subscribed over on YouTube, the 418 of you there. Appreciate you being subscribed to the Hoth Hangout YouTube channel. Additionally, you can contact us via email at hothhangout@gmail.com with your Star Wars related thoughts, questions, or otherwise, and we'd love to showcase them here on the pod. Additionally, you can catch the Hoth Hangout podcast anywhere you get your pods, including Spotify and Apple. And if you're listening on either of those platforms or any platform that allows you to leave a 5-star review, leave a 5-star review on the podcast as we would very much appreciate it. And it does also allow the podcast to be more easily discovered by other Star Wars fans as well. You can find Hoth Hangout on the socials, whether it be TikTok, Instagram, or X, at Hoth Hangout on each of those. Follow us on those platforms. And additionally, the Hoth Hangout community Discord server is now available to access. Definitely check out the Discord server link, which can be found in the show notes of today's episode below. Joey, you got any final thoughts on Bad Batch? What's in store for us with the conclusion of the show?
I am. I'll say this. After talking about it a little bit more, I am a little bit hopeful. So this was like a nice little therapy session. Maybe
There we
I
go.
just needed
Yeah.
to talk it out a little bit, to see, like the things that we talked about, the some of the scenes that were a little bit more pivotal than I really even thought about. So a little bit more optimism going into this. So maybe
Okay.
I am more excited for this right now, but I'm not going to say I'm not excited for things like Tales of the Empire, Acolyte, things like that. All that stuff coming up very very soon. And yeah, I'm excited for it. Again, as always, great time to be a Star Wars fan. So maybe I should just calm it down a little bit. Maybe I should get off Twitter. Maybe I need to go on YouTube a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, it's a great time to be a Star Wars fan. Actually, now that I think about it, next week we get the Bad Batch finale and the premiere of Tales of the Empire, or maybe like all the episodes, because I assume there may only be 6.
Same. Yeah,
So
I
we
would
get
assume.
all of Tales of the Empire and the season finale of Bad Batch in the same week next week. Gonna be a pretty exciting time, that's for sure. Before we take off, I did have one thing that I failed to show you at the top of the podcast that I wanted to share with yourself and Gibbo. Check out this gift I received recently for those of you watching
Nice.
the video version of the podcast.
Is it a Bad Batch plushie? Is that what that I'm looking at here?
He's
Oh,
got a
it's
little.
Hunter. It's a helmet. That's awesome.
Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
I got a little Ahsoka one as well, but I thought
Nice.
Hunter was more applicable for where we're at in Star
Love
Wars
it.
timeline right now. But anyways, shout out to Gibbo for producing today's episode, the show, the videos, and the assets behind the scenes. Gibbo, our person who is more handy than Echo himself. So much love, Gibbo. Shout out to you for producing
Wow.
the show. By
I
the
got the
way,
dad joke. I got the dad jokes too.
Joey's got the dad jokes too. Gibbo coming in with some clutch moments behind the scenes today with the Zillow Beast thing. I feel like I would have entirely looked that over if you wouldn't have said something in chat. So
I
uh,
definitely looked it over during the notes, so GG's to Gibbo.
but yes, once again, shout out to producer Gibbo. Much love to all of you listening. Shout out, by the way, to Jimmy Simpson, the voice actor for Dr. Hemlock, whose name I completely forgot during today's episode. Shout out to you, Jimmy. And shout out to George Lucas. Shout out to Dave Filoni. Much love once again to each and every single one of you listening to today's episode. We'll catch you next week with our reaction to the season finale of The Bad Batch over on YouTube, the episode 79 podcast, breaking down the season finale. I lost my train of thought there, and the reaction over. If you're watching the video version of the podcast, you know why I lost my train of thought. But and our reaction to season or the brand new trailer. Wow, my brain is all over the place. The brand new Tales of the Empire. There we go. That's what I was trying to say. Much love, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We'll catch you in the next one, and may the force be with you.